things like just not having good bowel movements, having a lot of bloating or gassing or burping and flatulence and gut inflammation. Those are pretty good signs that there's stress going on there. Looking at your stools, how formed do they look? Are you regular? Are there a lot of undigested stool pieces, in your stool? And those are all pretty good ideas that you're on a bad track. And so it's good to look at that. And then, of course, if you have chronic iron and you're fixing the menstruation issues, you're eating meat, you're adding in digestive support, that's all great. You probably want to look deeper and get your gut tested and see if there are any other bugs in your gut, like SIBO or just general dysbiosis or other parasites or H. pylori or other issues that could be at play. So you got to look at all of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the inflammation. I mean, so that could be gut exposure. That could also be, I would say, diet is simple. It sounds so simple, but it's still worth mentioning. You still have so many women that are just going in the Starbucks drive-through and getting a pastry or a bagel or a muffin or whatever, and they have their coffee and that's it. That's it for their breakfast. And then they wonder why they're exhausted. So, I mean, nutrient density is just so foundational.
Yeah, nutrient density is really important. And to really have good nutrient density, you have to be eating some level of animal products. You're just not going to get the same level of nutrient density from an amino acid standpoint. You're not going to get the iron, the B12. It's going to be harder to get the fat soluble vitamin A. I mean, you'll convert some from B12. I mean, some from beta carotene, but you won't get enough. And if you have insulin resistance, you won't convert B12. You won't convert beta carotene well. You also won't convert a lot of your ALA-based omega-3s like flax and chia. You won't convert that to your longer chain EPA and DHEA fats, which are good for inflammation in your brain. So there's a lot of precursor things that we just assume like, oh, I'm getting iron from spinach. I'm going to convert that non-heme iron to heme-based iron, right? To animal heme iron. It's like, no, oh, I'm getting enough bioflavonoids in my vegetables. That's vitamin A, right? It's like, well, no, that's beta carotene. You may not convert that. Or same thing with, just trying to think here, what other analogies that you can do. So you have the plant-based iron, you have the beta carotene stuff. You have the vitamin, trying to think here, what else? Zinc and a lot of your minerals may be tied up in a lot of anti-nutrients in plants. So you may think you're getting a lot of these vitamins and minerals, but you may be having a lot of them tied up in the anti-nutrients, the lectins, the phytates, the mineral blockers, the trypsin inhibitors. And so you may think you're getting some of these things because it's on the nutrient label, but there may be some absorption because of these mineral blockers and proteolytic enzyme blockers.
That's a good point. And so for vegetarian vegans listening, if you could get them on liver capsules, you'd say get them on some pastured liver would be a great option. If they're opposed to that, even, I mean, what do? I've seen women on paper suffer for years, and I honestly just use the labs as justification to push them harder into something like liver capsules if they just absolutely don't want to do the meats.
Yeah, there's some liver capsules are going to be ideal. That's where I'll put in my Iron Supreme, which is the ferrous bisglycinate. We'll add in some additional amino acids from like either collagen or some kind of a free form amino acid to get the protein up without getting all of the anti-nutrients and the carbs in there as well. Just because a lot of vegan vegetarian proteins, they're just very carb heavy, right? Rice and beans, quinoa, they're just, they're 60-70% carbohydrate per the protein you get in. So it's hard if you need to keep your carbs down for insulin or inflammation or fat burning means, well, it's hard to do that if you're trying to stick to a vegetarian vegan diet. I mean, you can do it if you're adding maybe some hemp protein or some rice protein in, but then you're heavily relying on a lot of processed food for most of your protein. That's not great. So we don't want to have things to be so processed where we have to overly rely on it. It probably tells us that your diet needs to be tweaked and adjusted if you're heavily relying on processed food to get your nutrients up.